Hello, I'm Locke, Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where I have Louisiana Senator Bodi White. Bodi is running for mayor of Baton Rouge. He's going to talk to us about the big issues that he thinks need to be focused on. Education's number one, to give children a chance. He's going to talk to us about crime and also talk to us about transportation. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Louisiana Senator Bodi White, running for mayor of Baton Rouge.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I have a Legal Lines tip for you. Remember, knowledge is power. And I want you to know, if you're injured, Louisiana law grants you a variety of claims to make sure you're fully compensated. It's generally chopped up into several categories, the first being general damages. That's going to compensate you for your mental and physical pain and suffering, your scarring, disability, functional limitations, your loss of enjoyment of life. Also, it will compensate your family, frankly, for your loss of affection. It's called loss of consortium claim. Next category is specific damages. Those would be, say, for example, past and future lost wages, past and future medical expenses. You also have a claim sometimes for what's called punishment damages or punitive damages, typically only available when you're injured by a drunk party. Finally, you're entitled to legal interest from the date you file your lawsuit until you're paid and court costs. So my Legal Lines tip to you from me, Locke Meredith: make sure you know what your claims are.
This has been Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith, and I'm pleased to have back on the show one of our Louisiana State Senators, Bodi White. Bodi, pleasure seeing you again.
Pleasure to be here.
Appreciate you coming in. I know you're running for mayor right now for Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge Parish. Let's put on your state senator hat first, though.
I've wore that one for 5 years now.
Yes, it's a wow. But first of all, before we even get there, tell folks a little bit about your background.
In public service, I've been in public service. This is my 13th year. I served in the House of Representatives in District 64, which was a very harmonious district, I guess, or harmonious district with Zachary, North Central, and Livingston. It was not a lot of difference in the folks that live in those areas, but this Senate district is much more diverse. I have the southeast Baton Rouge and central Pride, Cheneyville, south part of St. Helena, a little bit of North Livingston, and then I have Tangipahoa Parish from Independence all the way to Middendorf. So that's in my district. I have Hammond and Ponchatoula, so it's a much more diverse district with 4 parishes.
And as I understand it, I mean, we actually met the first time when you had been trying to help get school district set up, I think, in southeast Baton Rouge. They've been trying, actually gotten the law passed, governor had signed it, but couldn't get the funding. Mm-hmm. And then there was the push, well, if the only way we can do this is create a new city, we'll start a new city, and that was the St. George petition issue. And you brought it up that education is a big issue. Let's talk about that first with your Louisiana State Senator hat on. I mean, y'all faced a lot of big issues here.
A lot of issues this year, the deficit, the budget, and I'm on Finance Committee. And
tell the folks all the committees you're on.
Well, I'm on Finance Committee. We meet on Mondays usually, and lots of other days when we need to. I'm on Judiciary C, which is the Criminal Justice Committee. I'm on Commerce Committee that deals with all the business and banking and real estate and all those issues. And I'm on the Education Committee that deals with K through 12 and higher ed, and I'm chairman of Homeland Security.
All of them very, very important committees.
They are.
And very diverse.
It is. It's a great diversity of subject matter. I've always been on at least 3 committees, even in the House, but in the Senate, I probably see nearly 50% of the bills as they come through the process in those committees before they ever get to the floor, because those committees see a great deal of bills. You know, all the money bills and budget, or any bills that deal with money that affect the budget, could come through finance. Commerce, here's all the business issues,
right?
And judiciary, all the criminal
legal
justice
issues,
and then of course education. Anything dealing with K through 12 or higher ed comes through that committee.
And then Homeland Security. I mean, good gosh, if you needed some credentials for being mayor, having that diverse experience in all those extraordinarily important areas It's a big plus.
It is. I've seen most all of it. You know, in Homeland Security, we don't meet that often, but when we have a hurricane or an emergency, you know, I sit on the Unified Command, which is the governor's cabinet and staff, and I'm the representative from the Senate that sits in, and I report back to the Senate and to the president of, you know, the situation, what's going on, and help around the state with issues, because we always have other parts of the state that need information and help out when we're in a state of emergency.
I know that the Governor Edwards called a special session, and then y'all had a regular session prior to that, and y'all have been dealing with the $1 billion deficit or debt that we had. How do we stand today?
Well, when we left on June 23rd, we went from straight through from February 14th, Valentine's Day,
A long period of time.
to June 23rd, the longest continuation of sessions in the history of the state of Louisiana legislature. And it was pressure packed. It was trying to figure out the budget, trying not to cut higher ed, trying not to cut as many services as critical services.
Right.
Well, but with that being said, we did make cuts when we notified. I serve on joint budget also, which is the Finance Committee and the Appropriations Committee in the House. We meet jointly, and we're meeting tomorrow actually, and we can move money around that we can't appropriate new money.
Right.
But we can move it around, or if federal dollars come in, we can move it to the departments or different sections of the state, and you know, and do change orders and things like that on contracts. But when we're notified, when the legislature is notified that we're in deficit by our finance people, staff, then we have to notify the governor that we're in deficit, and he's, at that time, he is, by Constitution, has to deal with it.
Because we have a budget,
Right.
Balanced budget law.
Right. And then this year, you know, I think he cut either 3 or 5% the first time. But over the 3 sessions, we cut millions and millions of dollars out of the budget. We didn't just try to make the budget whole. There was areas that we had to cut at different times. We had to cut it when we were in deficit, and then that was done.
And so the bottom line is any person who has to deal with debt and income, there's 2 ways you deal with a scenario where you have a debt. You either increase your revenues, which in this case would mean raising taxes,
Right.
or you decrease your expenses, or both.
Right.
And we did both, right?
We did both. We cut, I think we cut maybe a couple $100 million over the 3 sessions.
Which is
in
a
certain
ton.
areas. Well, I mean, when you're talking about $1 billion deficit, it's in general fund dollars, state general fund, there's only 8 or 9 billion. And of that 8 or 9 billion, there's only a little over 2, 2.25, 2.5 that you actually have discretion on that you can move.
Because all the other money expenditures are dedicated.
Right,
They got to happen that way.
Right. And the reason they were passed over time in history, as they were, those revenues, that they were dedicated to a certain source to be used for a certain purpose. And you can't just move them if they're dedicated source. Now, when we're in deficit, the governor does have discretion to cut 5%, up to 5%.
Of all budgets?
Yeah. Of
All
budgets.
agencies, all
Yeah.
budgets, all departments.
Right.
And he did it.
Yeah, he did it.
Okay. So as we sit today, we're not $1 billion in debt. Are we breaking even, or we're slightly?
When we left, we were pretty close to being just even. But when you're talking about, see, our budget after Katrina, we went up to around 30 billion, I think, with all that federal dollars
Right.
in, and
Billions.
You know, and we rebuilt South Louisiana, and all the federal and FEMA dollars were in here. But as those dwindled, as the state was rebuilt and those dollars went away, we cut the budget year after year till it was down to 25 billion. We went from about 32 to 25.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah,
but
I didn't know
we
that.
cut $7 billion.
Okay.
We reduced budget $7 billion. And then we come in now, we're at 25, but with taking Medicaid expansion, those are Medicaid dollars. And with that cost,
You had to deal with it. We'll continue it on the next segment.
Okay.
This is Locke Meredith, Legal Lines, Louisiana Senator Bodi White. We'll be right back.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith, and I have a legal lines tip for you. Remember, knowledge is power. And I want you to know if you're injured, Louisiana law grants you a variety of claims to make sure you're fully compensated. It's generally chopped up into several categories, the first being general damages. That's going to compensate you for your mental and physical pain and suffering, your scarring, disability, functional limitations, your loss of enjoyment of life. Also, it will compensate your family, frankly, for your loss of affection. It's called loss of consortium claim. Next category is specific damages. Those would be, say, for example, past and future lost wages, past and future medical expenses. You also have a claim sometimes for what's called punishment damages or punitive damages, typically only available when you're injured by a drunk party. Finally, you're entitled to legal interest from the date you file your lawsuit until you're paid and court costs. So my legal lines tip to you from me, Locke Meredith. Make sure you know what your claims are.
This has been Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, very pleased to have back on the show our Louisiana Senator, Bodi White. He's also running for mayor. We were just talking, Bodi, about kind of with your Louisiana Senator hat on, dealing with the $1 billion debt the state had, or deficit that the state had.
Right.
And you basically indicated that y'all did all the cutting that you could do. The governor cut 5% of the entire budget for the state.
Right.
And then in the areas where y'all had the power to cut, y'all cut that.
Right.
You got in some Medicaid money, but the state had to put up a little bit to get a whole bunch of money from the federal government.
Right. What we did was, in the past 8 years, we went from $32 billion to $25 billion. With Medicaid expansion, the budget was pushed back to $27 billion.
Because y'all had to put up some money to get a whole lot more than that money from the feds.
And
okay.
And those are going to be federal dollars that cover every person that's going to go on Medicaid with the expansion, which is going to be hundreds of thousands of people.
All right, so that's the kind of cutting expenditure side. And then, as I understand it, taxes were raised, the sales tax being the biggest kind of generator?
The penny sales tax, which lots of ideas were floated, and I think most people thought the most fairest sales tax was the 1 penny sales tax, and where everybody, you don't pay it unless you purchase something that's taxable.
And then, but y'all limited the time frame that it's collected.
It expires in 2 years.
Okay.
And hopefully that the reorganization of tax structure in Louisiana, we're going to make in this coming year, which will be a fiscal year, we figure out how to restructure our taxes here.
Okay.
And credits.
And so kind of in the tax arena, you had the sales tax, and then I know I read about kind of reducing credits or the length of amount of money that could be credited out per year and that kind of stuff. And so that got us where we needed to be.
Yeah, we were within 100 million. And when you're talking about 27 billion, 100 million is a lot of money. But sometimes you can move money around and close those gaps.
Okay. All right, let's shift gears. You're running for mayor. Why?
I'm running for mayor because I've lived in this parish for 60 years. And I felt like that if we don't do the things we need to do in the years to come, that it's going to be tough to live here. And I care about the people in this parish. You know, been in public service for 13 years. I was in the sheriff's office for 6, so I've been basically 20 years of my life, really my whole life in public service. My dad, 40 years, sheriff's office.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, just felt like a bunch of people asked me to run. And at the end made that decision. And once we come out of session, I've been hitting it hard since June 23rd, put together a great team. It's been good. I've had people call me today. That's on the way over here. I went and met with people who wanted to support me. And so I feel good about it now.
You were telling me before we came in for the show that your day started at 5 a.m. and it's not going to finish till 1 a.m.
I'll probably get home at 10, and then I'll spend 3 hours on the computer returning emails from my legislative job. I stayed at the Senate to the last day, the 23rd, when we finished at midnight, and I picked my computer up and left at 1 in the morning. So I wasn't going to leave the job that I was elected to.
Yeah, bottom line is you have amazing dedication. It's obvious this is more than just public service. It almost sounds like a family ministry, kind of family venture.
Well,
decades, generations.
It is, and you know, I think that the best years for East Baton Rouge Parish could be ahead of us. I mean, with the two major universities and the assets we have and the people we have here, and I think at some point I have a lot of ideas that I've not always agreed with East Baton Rouge school system, and I'm never going to be satisfied when we have kids that don't graduate high school, and we have companies that won't locate here, and we have middle income people leave because they don't have the money for a private school.
Right.
That when we fix that, and I think it's fixable, then that's when we become a great city and parish. When we have 5 of the top school systems in the state and the metro area, the whole metro area becomes so dynamic.
Because right now, as you know very well, we have Ascension and a Livingston and Central, which you were significantly involved in, and other areas very close by that have top-notch schools. But in East Baton Rouge Parish, we're D if we're lucky, maybe C.
It is, and there's a variety of reasons. A lot of people don't know, and you can, and I could sit here and beat on them, but you know, we were under forced federal order for 50 years. We finally got out from under it. I have great hope with Warren Drake. And,
He's a great man from everything
yeah,
I hear.
He is. And I think if anybody can turn it around, he can.
So let's explain to folks that when you're elected mayor, or the Metro Council even, or both of y'all together, y'all really don't have a ton of power over the education system in the sense that you can say, do this and do that, and
You
don't
can't.
do this.
But remember, the mayor-president, I think, is the most powerful position in this parish.
It is a very powerful position, very
And
powerful executive.
It is a very powerful executive. And if that's one of your top priorities, then I think you can move people, you can move business people, you can move the school board to work with them to do different things that could bring that school system. It's a C right now, okay? They've come up, they have some great, they really do, they have some really great programs in the magnets and some of the gifted and talented
Right.
and the immersions, but there's just not enough programs for 44,000 kids. And it's not just the programs. I understand that the difficulties that those teachers have in some of the inner city communities and those kids where they really don't have the home life that maybe our kids or your kids
Right.
or a lot of our viewers, and it's difficult. But there's other people around the country with programs, and if some of the charters that have come in, and we just approved one in the legislature that's going to have a boarding component of it. They're fixing to build it on Brightside. Well, those kids are all homeless.
Homeless children.
Homeless. And, you know, or they have a home environment where, and homeless could be, you only have one parent, and that parent could be in the hospital, or that parent could be in prison.
Or never home.
Or never home. And so, you know, they're taking them there, and there was long discussions about that this year. That program is going to take those kids, those homeless kids, and they've taken them for a year or two, and they were a D when they started, and they're a B now.
Wow.
But their plan is to have a boarding school.
So it's supporting the kids from the moment they wake up till they go to sleep.
Yep.
In every way.
And until they wake up the next day, and they let them go home if they want to go home on the weekends or go visit relatives and things like that. But really, those, you know.
So you kind of envision that being implemented.
I think if you can do more of that,
scale.
and we can get, I'm going to be fighting for dollars for our pre-Ks. I'm talking about 2s and 3s.
Right.
And that helped West Feliciana turn their program around. They were able to start their kids in lower income at 2 and 3, and it's the earlier you can get them, the better the outcome is.
We'll continue it on the next segment. This is Locke, Meredith, Legal Lines. Louisiana Senator Bodi White running for mayor. We'll be right back.
It's time now for Legal Lines Tips with your host, Locke Meredith.
Hello, I'm Locke Meredith with a Legal Lines tip for you. Document your claim. What do I mean? Whenever you present a claim, whether it's for injuries in an automobile collision or for a breach of contract case or a business claim, it all boils down to documentation and evidence. For example, when you go to trial, basically both sides are presenting their evidence of what they believe to be their case. For example, also, if you're involved in an automobile collision, document the event. Talk to all the parties who are involved. Get their names, address, contact information, insurance info. Talk to the witnesses on the scene. Also get their contact information. Take photographs. With the phones we all have these days, everybody can take a picture and that paints 1,000 words. So document your claim. The Legal Lines tip from me, Locke Meredith, to you is document the claim.
This has been Legal Lines Tips.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, very pleased to have on the show Louisiana Senator Bodi White. He's running for mayor of Baton Rouge. Bodi, we're talking about education, and you were indicating that there are programs both here in the state, in the city, that have been approved via charters, elsewhere, where they're grabbing the kids at really young ages, 3, 4, and they create a structured environment for them, and it gives them hope, and it gives them a chance, and it gives them the environment to achieve.
Right.
And that's basically, you want a partnership with the school board and businesses and the communities everywhere.
Right.
And find money, both from the Fed, state, and businesses privately, and put the resources necessary to make those programs available to as many as possible.
Right. It's the more lower income children, doesn't matter what color they are.
That's right.
It's the economics that you can get to, the earlier the better the outcomes. And everyone that you can get them an education and you keep them from dropping out and you keep them out of juvenile justice, that's $100,000 to $150,000 a year to take care of that kid in a secure place.
Per year?
Per year. And most of them, if they don't have good outcomes there, they go into adult prison, and we pay $30,000 to $50,000 a year from now on.
So just if you took out morals and values and doing the right thing, just from strictly economic standpoint,
right,
you put a lot less money in on the front end than you are at the end product, and you're saving a human being, and this may be a lost human being.
Right.
And that nobody wants.
No.
All right, so let's shift gears. Another important issue with the tragedies that occurred last month with the Sterling family and with the fantastic law enforcement and city police and the sheriff deputies. You know, it's the crime and just the problem that we have with the community apparently cooperating, or vice versa, the police cooperating with the community. It just seems to be colliding. So what do we do?
Well, I think right now it's kind of a pause. I guess a way you could put it would be a pause in action, that everybody's reflecting. I think everybody's thinking about it a great deal, and how do we fix it? And I think with the clergy that want to get involved, and I think that even the people that don't live in the city of Baton Rouge, they want to get involved and fix this. And I think if the people not from our parish don't come in and agitate and incite, then I think the people, well, I mean, we really have a very educated adult population here with LSU and Southern University and the community colleges. We really do. And I think we can figure it out. We've always, every town and every community has local politics, and you get after it a little bit sometimes. But then when it's over. But I mean, this was way off the top, and it truly is a tragedy with Mr. Sterling. I don't think anybody that night intended that to happen or had that intent.
Or is glad that it happened.
Right. And you know, we get through that. You have to let the process work. I think the right decision was to let an independent investigation come in and handle it.
Agree. Helen Moore made a good decision.
And I think that, you know, you let the system work. You give it time. And whatever the outcome is, then you try to deal with it. And to deal with it is not to have violence or commit crimes, in my opinion. It's just deal with it going forward and learn from your mistakes and correct them and go forward.
Bodi, I know there was a proposal the Metro Council was considering last night about whether there should be residency requirements for the Baton Rouge City Police. What's your position?
Well, you know, that sounds good, And they've tried that in other parts of the country, and they even tried it here before.
Well, and the goal is that you're going to have a police force that reflects the kind of the makeup of the community, and there's going to be better, I guess, cooperation, right?
Right. I mean, even if you said to the parish, and you live down on Tiger Bend Road, and it doesn't mean you have the commonality, or you're going to spend a lot of your time in Glen Oaks, or in Mid City, or on Government Street. I mean, that's your job, and you should do that as your job, and volunteer when you can, and give back to the community that you represent. I'm just afraid it would cut down on your pool of employees. It'd be like LSU, like the state legislature telling LSU or Southern that you couldn't hire a professor that wasn't from the state of Louisiana.
Well, and as I understand it, we're 52 police officers short right now.
Right.
We can't even, I mean, I can't imagine people are beating the door to go get shot at right now.
Look, I understand the motivation for that.
I
Some
think the
people
goal's
think
great, a great
yeah.
goal. I'm just not sure that's necessarily going to accomplish that
Right.
goal.
I think that going forward, the way you get a better pool and more people in the city of Baton Rouge to work is you have to raise the standard and the pay for those guys. They start off at $32,000
Right, who wants
a year.
to put their life on the?
I mean, that's every day, and all they do is when they get off work 8 or 12 hours is go work 6 or 8 hours of a detail somewhere, so they can help
make enough money to
ends
pay the
meet.
bills.
Right, and most all those officers that were shot or were killed, they were from here, but obviously they moved to Livingston for the same reason that everyone else that's middle income that can't afford a private school is to move into a community with your kids, and you have a young kids, children. That's your main, that's your biggest concern. It was for me. It is, and you want to provide them a good education so that you don't have the same situation as some of the kids that you deal with every day.
Good education and a safe environment. Right. And so, Bodi, I did a couple years ago shows with all of our law enforcement chiefs, Sheriff Sid, Colonel Mike Edmondson, Louisiana State Police, talked to Hiller several times, the mayor, and I know the position back then was they need more officers. Right now, these guys can't do community policing because they're barely keeping their head above water, just dealing with all the emergencies everywhere and crimes taking place. Do you plan on trying to address that?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you this. Besides the calls they do, especially uniform patrol, and I did that. And if you don't have enough manpower.
You were a deputy for how many years?
6.
Okay.
And I worked for uniform patrol some, and then I worked mostly detectives.
So you're speaking from experience.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys are just going call to call. Lots of days you have no slack time. So, that's one problem. And you get a lot of unnecessary 911 calls, and I passed some legislation this year that I hope is going to address that, and we're going to be the pilot for the state to cut down on those 911 calls that go to emergency rooms where they're tying everybody up, the police and the ambulances. Remember this number, there's 70,000 911 calls in this parish every year that were responded to. Over 60,000 of them are non-life threatening. Okay.
So only 10,000 needed the actual help they were seeking. We got just a few seconds left. I know you wanted to address transportation. I don't know if you can do it in that short span.
Well,
we'll get together again.
Well, I mean, I've pushed for transportation since I've been here. I helped with the Baton Rouge delegation that we put together in '08, secured the dollars for widening I-12, I-10. I got Highway 16 in my district widened in Watson. I have 3 or 4 big major projects on Central, Pico Lane.
Yeah. Thank you. Very much appreciated. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. Louisiana Senator Bodi Wright, wearing for Mayor of Baton Rouge. Thank you for being with us.